Hey guys, welcome back to The Last Word, the show every Friday afternoon, brought to you by the Chrisman Commentary. By the way, scan the QR code on your screen to check out the Chrisman Commentary Marketplace. Finlocker's in there. Check us out. Courtney, Christy, KP, happy Friday. It's good to get us all back on the same screen.
I know, it's been a while. What, 3, 4, 5? 5? Oh, because 4th of July was in there.
Right.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Right. So we're most curious, Courtney, about your week with Monty. Can you just give us a quick overview of what the heck you were up to?
Yeah, so real. And I think that we should get a sponsorship for this. Adventures by Disney is the best way that you can potentially expose your overprivileged children to the third world. There's no Mickey Mouse. It's not like all crazy like that. You do get a Disney pin every day, which is like a big whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have never had so much access, so much assistance, so much enablement of a good time, but still very, very, very authentic to the experience as this. We went to Peru and it was a Sacred Valley Machu Picchu trip, not the Amazon rainforest. I think that they have one of those too, but separate geographies. Full ship Disney adventures.
Wow.
KP, you got to get on this.
Over that. I have money. No. I'm all over that because that means I don't have to wait in any lines. Right?
They move your bag. You also have to wait in 0 lines, not even into Machu Picchu where there's a 4-hour line to get into things if you have a ticket. And I understand, and it's on my list now, that if you go on the Egypt trip, they have full security that would make you feel safe in Egypt. And secondarily, you get to go to the Great Pyramids and the Sphinx alone at night without crowds. Disney access.
I mean, sign me up, but what is wrong with taking your kids to a third world country on like a mission trip where where there is nobody to move all your bags and do all the things and they get to do good in the world?
That's a fantastic idea, but I'm going to say 16 plus on that one. 12-year-old Montgomery Delane Thompson, he has lived a very nice life, and this was a really good starting point.
I think maybe the next time we'll sign him up for the church choir tour down in Honduras and let him go to the orphanages in Guatemala. Like my kids, by the way, I have done these things and I am not excited about them. I go do them because sometimes I feel called to do it. And I have never sent my kids to do it. I have sent them to be local, like go clean up the neighbor's yard and paint their roof or whatever it is that the church takes them to do while I work. But it was always a good thing for them to do. So I love that you did this and I love that it was so much fun and I enjoyed all the pictures too.
Yeah. So cool. So we'll keep moving here. So Christy is in the Portland airport, just arrived, prepping for the Texas Mortgage Bankers Board retreat. They had to get out of the great state of Texas, apparently. And KP is doing KP avatar things for us. He'll be on briefly.
Yes. I always have to shuffle people around. It's summer, school's almost started, but it hadn't started. So it's like, you guys shut up, turn this off, stop fighting, take that out. You guys go here. Anyway.
Well, we made it through July. We're kind of in the home stretch of summer now, which is both probably exciting and depressing for some. I was commenting before we went live that July, like in our business at FinLocker, July was busy. We had a lot of stuff going on, but we didn't grow like we did this time last summer. It just felt like there was a lot of conversations, but not a lot of, ink hitting the contract, so to speak. And then calendar switches. It's August 1st. I wake up and I have 3, signups in the inbox this morning. So hopefully that's a sign of life for the industry. But this week we had the Fed meeting, and I don't think anyone on this call is particularly surprised that there was no action taken relative to rates. But KP, we'll start with you. What's kind of the recap for you, and what are you hearing about from your team relative to what you saw in the markets this week?
I love that you want to start with me on that one. Well, I don't think anyone, like, there was nothing unexpected about the move. So that I think is number one. So no one expected a rate cut. So let's just get that out of the way. But, this thing is more about than just a rate cut. It's like, is the Fed behind the 8 ball like they normally are? And lo and behold, this jobs report comes out today, and it kind of justifies what everyone's been saying, that they should be cutting. They're behind the 8 ball, old and slow. They're waiting too long. Da 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 da. So, let's fast forward to this morning. Was it 258,000 jobs revised down the last couple months? I mean, we're only averaging like 35,000 jobs created the last couple months. Unemployment rate ticks up to 4.2%. And so, it's a debate. It's a little esoteric. Is it breaking? Is it softening? What's labor doing? Should the Fed be cutting? But I mean, it doesn't matter. The Fed didn't have to cut 2 days ago. Look at the 10-year Treasury today. I mean, rates are great today. So we're going to have a humongous lock day to start August, just like we did last year. When everyone anticipated the Fed would cut in September last year, rates were great this month. It was a huge lock month. So I would just tell people to get ready. And, that's kind of my view on the Fed. I could go into it for hours and hours. I don't want to bore you all.
Christy,
Courtney, get ready. Courtney, get ready for a refi boom. Like your servicing portfolio should have a little bit of churn right now.
A little bit of churn. I still think from our servicing port that people are more interested in HELOCs and HELoans than refinances. So somebody jokingly said, "Hey, we're going to send Guido after some of these folks with these 3% rates. Maybe they'll pay off." And again, seriously, that's a joke. But
I know it's a joke, but we joke about it so much that I think we forget that it's been 3 years of elevated rates, 3 years of purchase money dominated market at really high rates with ever increasing loan amounts, ever increasing insurance, ever increasing taxes. So I'm telling you, let's just say if you have a jumbo loan and you can save your rate even 3/8, that's a lot of money per month. That's a lot of money. And I know I'm not speaking to everyone, but it's funny because we're seeing this weird dynamic where our units are down for the year, and I think the units will be down for the industry for the year, but the dollar volume will be up. It's because everything is more expensive. Volume is up. Yeah, and we get paid on dollars, by the way. No. So, yeah.
Well, I will say that when I talk to originators that are out on the street, there's certainly more optimism today than there has been in a long time. That the sentiment you're getting from consumers is because we've been in this rate environment for so long, they're figuring out how to deal with it. This is the new norm for them. And so you don't get this you don't have nearly the number of people calling and asking you, when a rate's going to go to 3%. They're happy for them to go down 1/8 or 1/4 or 3/8, as you said, KP. And they're figuring out how to readjust their budgets. We have started to see across our consumer book, because you don't have a lot of delinquencies in mortgage, even though the data that came out that shows, you have some rising delinquencies on the Jenny book, but just in general, you don't see a lot of delinquencies in mortgage. Our consumer book, though, anyway, I want to knock on wood or something around here. There's a tree behind me. We'll knock on that in a minute. But we're seeing a flattening out of delinquencies in the consumer book. And it's leveling off, and we're not seeing people get into that 90, 120. They're hitting 60, and then they're getting caught back up. And so I think this is a really good sign for the future of all of lending.
Yeah,
I'll pass it off to Courtney to talk.
I was running a really long way this morning, and I was thinking about you, KP, because I knew I was going to get to see you today.
You ran today? I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I did. I'm less fat than I was 6 hours ago.
Good for you.
I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, like, I knew that we would have energetic sentences with exclamation points at the end. And I don't know, like, what if this is the new bottom? Like, what if rates just go up from here? Like, when are we going to do the things that Christy said? When are we not going to carry the expectation that they will go down, and, trying to find something dirty in the books of the Fed, or, whatever the case may be? I just feel like there's a lot of negative noise in the marketplace always. We know that we're not going to see a 3% again unless something crazy is like actually happening. And I don't know, I think that the sooner that we start, maybe even as a country, talking in a unified way about that, like, money costs money, I don't know, maybe that would spur, create more activity in the marketplace. I think the activity that we are seeing in the marketplace is people are like, all right, the 6% thing, 7% thing's not going to go away. I need to move, for whatever reason. Just like we saw divorce rates go up in, what was it, like 2023, because everyone was like holding on through COVID.
Yeah.
When are we just going to preach acceptance and move on? I mean, at least, and Kevin, I'm sure you see the same thing. The top LOs with us, they're still baking loans.
Yeah.
And they're not waiting for something to happen. Those sales folks are still in the kitchen. Still seeing the numbers, still seeing the, and at a point, like, when should we spend more time talking about acceptance than, they didn't prove it again?
Well, let me reposition my exclamation point so it makes kind of sense. What I'm saying is that I think everyone's been in a defensive posture for 3 years, and I think we've gone through acceptance. I mean, it's 3 years of purchase dominated markets. My point is, be ready to pivot offensively very quickly, because we mentioned this on one of our last couple shows here, and Barry Habib and team do a great job at MBS Highway. They showed this chart over the last couple of years when these little refinance opportunities came up. And I'm not saying 3% people are getting out of the money. I mean, I'm good at math. I get it. We all get that. What I'm saying is there are tens of thousands of loans that are all in the money for a full-blown refinance at 6.4% 30-year fixed. And what Barry showed on this chart was like during the April, Liberation Day kerfuffle, which I cannot get over that word. It's just too much fun. That you on some days you had 3 days to lock in all your in the money clients. Some days when the market dipped, you had 1. Some days you had a week. And so, Brian, you guys do a good job at FinLocker, preparing, having the conversation, showing everybody what they would say, getting them ready. And then, like, we can talk about acceptance, but I think consumers are very interesting. Half this country hates our president and everything he does. They think everything he does is going to wreck their thoughts on buying a house, right? And so as time goes on and we get further away from Liberation Day and more trade deals get done, and then people think, okay, well, what's the next thing to worry about? The next thing to worry about is my monthly payment on my mortgage. And so I'm not saying that refis, we should sit around and wait and do nothing and hope that a refi boomlet will come, and that that's going to save us all. I'm not. Don't get me twisted in what I'm saying. There will be massive refinance opportunities that show up, maybe not at a sustained low rate, okay, but when they show up, you have to be able to lock in and have those conversations, and not the first conversation. Hey, Bar, you're on the money when the rate hits here. I'm going to pull the trigger for you, and I'm going to call you. Are you ready? Yes. It doesn't make sense today, but if we get a horrendously horrible weak jobs report, and by the way, we now have 3 bad jobs reports in a row, so sustained labor weakness, and the 10-year Treasury is under 420. Today is going to be a massive lockdown in our industry, like massive. It'd be like the biggest one we've had since Liberation Day. And so, and just to throw out a contrarian point, this today could be the start of sustained lower rates, because if labor is sustained weak and sustained softening, and we start to see more and more job losses, we're going to see rates go lower, and they're going to stay where they are today and possibly even lower for longer. And so that's the hopeful scenario, but that's not we're all back. It's 2021. I'm never saying that. I'm not saying that. It's never happening unless we have another pandemic, which is highly likely because those dipshits in China are still messing with bats. So I'm just saying, like, we have to be ready to pivot offensively very quickly when it happens. Today is a perfect day. If you're an originator and you're listening to us right now, hang up. Go lock loans.
Yeah, you
hang
can
up
watch
in
this
14 minutes.
on demand later
But
today or tomorrow.
Oh my God, I love it.
That's right.
So
That's what they can do
that's
over the weekend instead of reading Stigums.
yeah.
Sorry, my 6-year-old was trying to barge in, and she's very sweet. She lost her second tooth yesterday.
I love it.
She may make a cameo here, little Serafina.
Serafina. So let's pivot. I think it's a related topic, and KP, you kind of hit on this a little bit. So over the last few weeks, a recurring theme has been coming up in conversations I'm having with loan officers around pipeline fallout, and it's pipeline fallout where buyers are canceling contracts, right? And the first couple of times I had it come up, I just thought it was maybe market driven or just hyper local, or even maybe down to that individual originator. But I've had this conversation with a couple dozen loan officers from a couple dozen different markets and companies, and it seems like everyone's faced with a little bit of this kind of fallout. I'm just curious, in each of your organizations, if this is something that you guys are seeing at an elevated level, and any kind of thoughts on is there any one particular thing that you think drives some of these buyers to cancel?
I mean, I think it's payment shock at the end of the day. When you get a loan or you put your information on a calculator online, you're doing your best, whatever, and you're selling your information to somebody that's going to call you 4,782 times. And, I think that everything's more expensive now. We live in a spendy more culture where I can go on Instagram and see all the fancy shoes I need to buy or whatever. These days, facial products or, get rich quick schemes. Anyway, I mean, I think that if you look at things like the types of delinquencies they're seeing, or the types of consumer spending that we're seeing, and what's going up where and how much things cost, I think that you get to the finish line of a loan and then you look yourself in the mirror and say, do I have to move? And can I really afford this? And I think that the answer more often than not is no. I mean, it's the same data, and, KP and Brian, maybe Christy actually is closer to it, where, the average age of the home buyer went from 30 to 38, right? It's this, unless you have, some sort of generational wealth or a parent that's going to put your down payment down or these types of things, it's very hard to spend money, and it's very hard to make expensive decisions like this. Maybe that's a good thing in terms of economic responsibility or, any of these other things. But I think access and affordability remains a huge problem, particularly with inventory problems, which aren't as bad as they were before. That's softened a little bit, but I just think that maybe people are telling themselves the truth right before the closing table.
I think you start to see that if there's anything wrong with the property, where before people had to buy it and they had to not do a home inspection because we had inventory issues, or even if it was like, hey, this is what you're getting, this is what the market is. Now, if those things come up, people are backing out of the contracts because they've been to the grocery store and they've had to put a basket of goods together and pay for it, and it's more expensive. And they look at that budget and they say, well, I can't afford to fix these or repair these things. If the seller is unwilling to do it, I can't continue to move forward. And so there are what I see as some minor things, or what would have been considered minor years ago, are blowing up more files and causing more people to walk away from deals.
There we go. I just pressed that a little too hard. I'll say that we're seasonally in a tougher spot. So, it's kind of a grinded out second half of the year, and we got bailed out last year with low rates. I mean, our locks really picked up late July, August, all the way through the September Fed meeting, and that carried us through the end of the year. And maybe we're seeing the beginning of a repeat. I think as far as fallout goes, I would just, if I were to generalize it, we're seeing a lot of existing homeowners start to list their homes, and our inventory is at pre-pandemic levels. So historically it's still pretty low, maybe even average. Ironically, they say that like inventory in a healthy normal market is a 6-month supply of homes, and we're at 4.5 months supply of homes. And 1.5 million homes are listed, but 500,000 are under contract. And so shout out, again, another stat from MBS Highway kind of showing the data underneath. And so I think some home owners that are trying to list are being a little unreasonable in their pricing. And so you're seeing them either do a price cut or pull their listing off. And that comes across to give Brian the statement that he opened up with this little segment, right? So, but having said that, it's a pretty normal market, and lower rates cures a lot. It doesn't make it more affordable for that first-time home buyer unless we really get sustained lower rates from here. It's just expensive to own a home, and that's why the Fed has kept rates higher for longer. I mean, look at home price appreciation last month. It means technically it was May. The FHFA home price index, which is just conforming loan amounts, the home price appreciation went down in a month. And so it's still up 2.3% year over year. So it's not like owning a home is a losing investment, especially you're gaining equity plus you're chipping away at debt, and you have a roof over your head, by the way. And you're not making a landlord rich. But I think we're just kind of seeing us get back to a normal market. And I think people forget about that. This is what a soft landing looks like. It isn't a recession yet, although housing has been in a recession. But housing prices has been the major driver of inflation and all these PCE and CPI reports. And so finally kind of seeing disinflation there where, and according to FHFA, which isn't the whole picture, but outright deflation. So, I still, to quote Logan Motorshami, it's labor over inflation. And today was a very weak labor report, and 2 months prior back got revised down. It's a soft labor market. And so I'm going to say what I say, the second half of every year since 2022, 22, 23, 24, now 25, this is your fourth last best good chance to lock in a good price on a home. ARMs are attractive now. I know people say date the rate and they hate it and da-da-da. But you know what? Sometimes, you date the rate for a year or two. You're not going to date necessarily for 3 or 6 months. Although I know, in this age of Tinder and all the swiping right and left, which I'm not part of that, thank God. People tend to date, a lot shorter time period. But, rates are trending down. They've been trending down. They want to trend down. I don't think that's going to stop. And labor is the big driver there.
Don't get an ARM unless you're a rich person. Unless you can afford a Disney adventure or a jumbo, which is the theme of today's session. Unless you can afford a jumbo, or don't get an ARM. I mean, I got it. You know what? I'm just going to talk to the people. The real people are my people. The rich people might be y'all's people. Don't get an ARM unless you really understand how it works.
You just went on.
Let's back up and talk about why you should or shouldn't get an ARM, because this is a great conversation topic, Courtney. And it's not just for rich people. It's for understanding. And I've had an ARM even when I was a poor person early in my home buying journey, and I've had ARMs, up through recently. But an ARM is a bet on what the market is going to do. So if you think the market is going to go down over a sustained period of time, and you don't necessarily want to have to refinance, then an ARM is a good product. But you should be able to afford the payment and be comfortable with it at least your first adjustment. And then you can deal with whatever happens from there. So use it as a gamble, but it's not a get it so that your rate is much more affordable than in the longer term. They also have some great products like the 5-1 ARMs or the 7-1 ARMs, where your rate is fixed for a longer period of time. And maybe that's only as long as you're going to be in that house. That's another good opportunity to get an ARM. So those are the conversations you should be having with your loan officer, or your loan officer should be having with people.
I have
Maybe go to TikTok with that for somebody who does social.
Well, no, for ask Professor Christie, I got another one. I'd also say don't originate a loan that you have to recast within the first 30 days because you can't afford the payment. I feel like we're seeing a lot of that now too.
I have never seen that.
Wow.
Oh, we're seeing a lot of that.
I do see a lot.
Yeah.
Interesting. I see a lot of people who care about the recast more than they've ever cared about it. And for a lot of folks, it's, look, when I had a 3% rate, I wasn't going to put any money into my house. However, now that it's, my rate is 6%, 7%, when I get this bonus or when I get this inheritance or when I get this thing, I'm going to want to recast, and I want to make sure what the policies and procedures are. So we're actually getting a lot of those questions
and
where we really didn't used to.
That's a traditional use of a recast, but we're seeing a lot of people using the concept of a recast as a potential bridge loan in their head. Because they have a piece of property that they can't sell until they get a new piece of property, so they overextend themselves, and then they're like, they freak out. One, make sure you get an eligible product, to Christy's point, right? Like, if you don't have an eligible product, you got problems. But two, consumers should always plan on paying at least 3 regular monthly payments to get that recast in place, because a recast is a new loan. New docs, new signatures, new everything. And so, that's just something that I'm seeing way more of that. I'm hearing way more of that from our servicing colleagues in terms of how are you handling this? It seems that the assumptions wave has calmed down a little bit, but a recast is not a bridge loan. Maybe we can make t-shirts, Brian.
Yeah. It feels like all these topics are kind of related to the same thing, which is there's not great or good enough communication happening, at the point of sale between the field originator and the consumer. Hopefully that's the case. Hopefully it's lack of communication and not hearing and then addressing.
No, I'm going to say it's lack of it sticking, right? So it's not, most of the originators that I know, and the way I was as an originator is you're educating people, but you were throwing a lot at them at a point in time where they've got a lot going on. I mean, they packed up everything in their life, including their goldfish. They've got nowhere to live, or they hope they have somewhere to live, but it's all in flux. And they're being thrown a lot of things that take a fair amount of education. And in today's age, maybe they've only ever learned it on TikTok or Instagram from 90-second reel. And so the knowledge level is not always there. And so they've got to come back and ask additional questions. And I think that's a thing where we talk about, what is your stay in touch contact method? And this goes back to the very beginning of the call with KP. We should be in constant contact, educating people on what's going on, having the conversation about when they're in the money to refi, or when it makes sense to look at a recast, or doing this overall education so that people aren't going to TikTok where somebody might tell them something that is completely wrong. They might get some great information, but there's no value judgment. There's no relationship. There is no real, do you know that person actually knows what they're talking about? I mean, what if somebody stumbled in here? They might think we're a bunch of crazy people. And I mean, they might be right. So,
Christy, you're my
this speaks to.
Christy, you're our guru. You're always Johnny on the spot with you're Christy on the spot with looking up the 2-year yield and the 10-year yield. Can you look at the 2-year yield? I would love for you to tell us live what the 2-year Treasury yield is right now. And while you're doing that, yeah, I mean, I'll just make a point about ARMs. I'm not a huge ARM advocate, but I'll just I'll throw another like pushback. Like, someone who's not rich and doesn't do Disney vacations can still be good at math. And so, it's just math, right? So again, if you think that you can get a better 5-1, that's a 1-year recast, or a 7-1, 1-year recast. If you think that you can get a better lower payment with a 5-1 or 7-1 ARM today than fixing in, and you are betting that, like you said, that rates will get lower over time, or maybe stay the same or be reasonably about where it is, anytime in that 1-year period, if you think rates are down, typically after 6 payments, of course, we're not promoting for churning. But if you want to refinance, 6 payments from now, that ARM, and fix it in at potentially a lower 30-year fixed rate payment, maybe that's what gets you to open the door. And then you have been renting for less than, 6 payments now. You're in the house at a time right now when it's your 4th last best good chance to get a good home price. and time the market. Because I do think generally people are good at math, like just general math, not like integers and calculus and all that kind of stuff. So, Christy, 2-year yield is a bet. It's a short-term bet on the economy and gives clear runway and path for a Fed cut. What are we at?
3.7.
Okay,
and
that's
your
pretty
10
low.
years at 4.2. It's pretty low.
Okay.
And that's, by the way, down. That's down over the last couple of days. This is actually what we tie our consumer lending to. So I track the 2-year for our consumer lending and the 10-year for our mortgage lending.
And just to put a bow on the point about the 2-year, the 2-year is the market rate that says to the Fed, we think the economy is weakening, and that spread between the 2-year and the Fed funds rate is how much clear guidance they have to get down to a quote neutral rate. So they have 50 basis points of cuts room today. They want to play it safe and do 25 bips. That's fine. You don't have to go 50 like they did last September, which the market didn't like. But I think you see typically ARMs done more on jumbo loans because they're much larger amounts. But gosh, conforming loan amounts are pretty large. I think the median home price, even with home price disinflation and lower speed of home price appreciation, I think the median home price is the highest it's ever been at like $436,000. That's a lot of money for a first-time home buyer. And so I'm not saying go ARMs and all that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of talk about it for a reason. It's because the market has spoken.
Well, guys, we've managed to talk our way all the way to the bottom of the hour, and love the conversation. It's I'm hopeful that our the originators out there that are not taking KP's advice and ignoring us. There's Serafina.
Show me your tooth. Show me your tooth. Right here.
This is a bonus episode. Look at that.
She lost another twofer.
Well, hopefully the originators that are watching are, taking note and learning something. I learn something every time I'm on here with you guys. I appreciate everyone sharing their perspective. Christy, safe travels to Portland. Courtney, welcome back to the U.S. And KP, have a great weekend with the with your fam. Until then, we'll see you all next Friday right here on The Last Word, a Chrisman commentary show. Peace.
See you guys next week.
See y'all later. Go the